well known for his sharp wit and fearless pronouncements. Although Stephen Colbert has no problem grabbing headlines, he has really gone above and beyond with this one. Both supporters and critics were caught off guard, and the replies are flowing in at a rapid pace. Just what was it that he said that elicited such a strong response? Here's Stephen Colbert's modern bombshell for yourself and find out why it's making headlines around the globe. Stephen Tyrone Colbert grew up in Charleston after being born in Washington, D.C. On May 13, 1964. South Carolina ranked 11th in terms of age. In 1974, when Colbert was 10 years old, his father and brothers died in an airplane crash. This event would probably define his childhood. The comic and performative side of Colbert began to blossom when he was a teenager. He discovered his voice when enrolled at Charleston's Episcopal Porter God School. At first, he deliberated and settled on Hampton-Sydney College in Virginia as his destination for philosophical studies. But he knew deep down that acting was his soulmate. Because of this realization, he switched his major to theater at Northwestern University and graduated in 1986. After finishing college, Colbert moved to Chicago and became a member of the Second City comedy troupe, where he got his start in the television industry as a backstage worker. In the early 2000s, Colbert had already made a name for himself as a comedian renowned for his scathing, deadpan comedy, and his career was taking off. The Colbert Report first aired in the fall of 2005 on Comedy Central. Colbert mocked the talk show pundits with his loud and snarky proper wing hosting style. In its first week on the air, the show averaged over 1 million viewers each week, quickly becoming one of Comedy Central's most successful series. Stephen Colbert was instrumental in the creation of the comedy show, The Colbert Report. Politics, and the news were heavily considered by those doing the doing. Consequently, it wasn't a leisure activity. Stephen fashioned a false conservative newscaster who was overbearing and convinced of his own righteousness. Stephen Colbert was another person who requested this character. But he became a ridiculous and entertaining parody of several newscaster types despite his extremely out there appearance and behavior. Stephen made fun of the media, lawmakers, and the press by pretending to be this guy. He pulled this off in a manner that was peculiar and funny all at the same. 6 months subsequent to the release of the Colbert Report, in 2006, Colbert was invited to speak at the White House Correspondents Association dinner. Colbert went on an obnoxious rant just feet away from Bush and Bush Jr., which split the critics and hushed the intended audience. Some thought he was great, while others thought his display of contempt was excessive. Regardless, the debate was the spark that ignited his popularity. Comedy Central's The Colbert Report has become into a powerhouse, receiving numerous Emmys, including 2013 and 2014 for Outstanding Variety Series. Following David Letterman's announcement that he would be retiring in 2015, Colbert was chosen to succeed him as host of The Late Show in April 2014. Everyone in late-night television looked up to Dave as a leader, and Colbert remarked that being a guest on David Letterman's show was something he never dreamed he could do. Colbert expressed his joy and gratitude at being chosen for the post by CBS, playfully stating that he needed to instantly pass after grinding an opening in his front teeth. It was a time before The Late Show with Stephen Colbert found its new sound after its September 8, 2015 launch with Colbert. But it really took off until President Trump began to dominate the news cycle. Regular appearances by Colbert on series like Big Questions, where he questions even more famous people, have further contributed to his fame. While he and his companions stared skyward and engaged in absurd philosophical speculations. The night that Colbert had a conversation with his mother, he attended a musical performance at the Spoleto Festival, where he met the woman who would later become his bride. With an emphatic, "I will definitely not ignore it," he addressed the publication. Standing in the lobby, I couldn't help but think, that one, right there as I approached the woman. I thought, that's ridiculous. Right then. Colbert, it's very crazy. I was right, it turned out. Even Colbert's mom recalls that fateful night. Throughout the night, he conversed with her. Colbert and Evelyn have been married since 1993. Madeline, born in 1995, John 2002, and Peter, born in 1998, are their children. Even though Colbert has a huge notoriety, his personal life appears to be rather ordinary. To their great fortune, Stephen and his family have settled down, his own family, and he are constantly there. He has always placed a premium on family and community. Colbert described himself as oddly normal and disclosed that he has a loving wife in an interview he gave to the New York Times in 2005. He frequently enrolled his children in nighttime study sessions, occasionally joking, "I am big on hugging," and they were very silly. Colbert reportedly attends Mass with his family on Sundays and is a devoted Irish Catholic. It went down 3 miles short of its runway and into some cornfields. A gloomy morning eventually arrived, and the flight attendants lost altitude melody in line with recordings from the cockpit. Nevertheless, it went beyond a mere inventory of necessities. The primary issue arose from the pilot's lack of attentiveness. The crash was catastrophic regardless of its exact reason. Tragically, only 13 out of 82 individuals on board survived the first impact. 72 people lost their lives as a result of the incident. No one can find Peter, Paul, or James anymore. For a long time, Stephen Colbert broadcast that. The death of his father and brothers, he reasoned, must have shaped his concealed name. A hidden name that no one could pronounce was appealing to him, he explained, because it represented his true identity. This clandestine call, which he described as having a mystical fulfillment, became intertwined with his grief over the awful death of his family and friends. After his father and brothers passed very suddenly, Stephen Colbert was forced to grow up with his distraught mother as a young orphan. For some time, he broached the subject. Their number was a mere 2. Though witnessing his mother's pain helped him deal with his own grief, he still suffered. To avoid harboring animosity, he credited her example. According to Colbert, he decided to embrace his profound sadness in order to cope with it. He equated the thrill of detonating his father and brothers to a tremendous explosion, a comparison he eventually accepted and said he had to come to love the bomb. There is a lack of presence from his father and 2 brothers. Colbert came clean about how much time he spent researching. Upon discovering that he could peruse 1 electronic book day, he proceeded to spend his whole allowance on books. For every birthday, confirmation, and Christmas, he asked for a book. During his freshman year, he weighed around 185 kg. By the end of the year, though, he had dropped to 135 pounds. He said he was just naive and unhappy and dejected. It took Colbert a long time to just feel the weight of his loss, and he speculated that this was because he was no longer living at home. When he had some time to himself, he was able to accept the reality of their departure, he explained. Although his quest for relief from his lower back pain seems to have taken an eternity when he was 48 years old, he now claimed that it had taken all of a moment. He discovered that going to the theater was a tremendously restorative experience after struggling in faculty. It was at this time that he began to use Stanislavski and Meister techniques, which, according to Colbert, let him open up to everyone around him about his sorrow. He compared it to a plethora of therapeutic approaches since it evolved into an acting exercise. His father and brother's deaths may have hit him hard at the time, but he has learned to celebrate loss in a different way. It was only later that he acknowledged grief as a distinct facet.